Hello, everyone, and welcome to the online presentation for Compact Mobile Food Operations brought to you by San Mateo County Environmental Health Services. My name is Gene Mora, and I am one of the current District Inspector Specialists for the Consumer Protection Division for San Mateo County. So before we begin, this presentation is going to be going over some major topics in regards to the CMFO program in San Mateo County. Some of those things will be about the basics, about the compact mobile food operations, structural requirements, operational requirements, commissary and storage requirements for your CMFO, MACO, micro enterprise home kitchen operations, and cottage food operations and how they tie into your CMFO operation. Things about supporting vending sites, local municipalities' roles, enforcement, what to expect about that. And lastly, we will have a Q&A to answer any questions. So a little bit of a background about the CMFO program. So some of you already may know about the origin of the compact mobile food operation. It was when Governor Newsom had signed the Senate Bill 972, which allowed some sidewalk food vendors to obtain a valid health permit. This then changed the current California Retail Food Code to add a new legalized type of food facility to its ranks, which was the compact mobile food operation. Because of the approval of SB 972, it expanded the ability scope of other food facility types, such as the Class B cottage food operation, which we'll discuss later in this presentation. So before we proceed further, for those wondering, you do not need a permit with our office if you are selling or giving away food within 25 square feet or less, and the food is only prepackaged, non-potentially hazardous food, or if it is whole uncut produce. However, remember, even though that you don't need a permit with us, this food still needs to be from an approved source, be protected at all times, stored properly, and is still subject to investigation by this department when prompted by complaints or just cause during normal business hours. So we're going to go over some basic terms that are going to be mentioned constantly in this presentation, and understanding some of those terms are key to ensuring a successful operation if you choose to operate a CMFO. And that first term is prepackaged food. What is defined as a prepackaged food? Foods that have been processed in a permitted facility or food establishment and properly packaged and labeled to prevent any direct human contact with the food product and customer prior to consumption. For definition purposes, whole uncut fruit is also considered prepackaged. Another term you'll hear is potentially hazardous food. You'll hear this term phrase a lot with our office, and this is what we refer to. PHFs, abbreviated, potentially hazardous food, abbreviated, are food items that need temperature control methods to stop rapid growth of microorganisms. These food items should always stay below 41 degrees or at or above 135 degrees. If the item you buy has the word perishable on its label, it is a potentially hazardous food and requires temperature control for safety. Examples of PHFs can include raw meat, cut tomatoes, and milk. Now for compact mobile food operation, or CMFO. The true definition of a CMFO is this. The key here is that the CMFO is non-motorized. It's a compact food mobile food operation means an unenclosed mobile food facility that operates from an individual or from a push cart stand, display, pedal-driven cart, wagon, showcase, rack, or other non-motorized conveyance. The equipment must be integral or connected, must operate with an approved commissary, and can only sell perishable food prepared with limited food preparation steps, prepackaged food, or whole uncut produce. If the CMFO has a motorized conveyance, it requires a different type of food facility permit and no longer falls under the definition as a compact mobile food operation. What else is not considered a CMFO? Pop-up food tents with multiple pieces of cooking equipment, and foods made from a private home or unpermitted restaurant or facility. So CMFOs are only allowed to conduct limited food preparation, and this is what that means. Limited food preparation encompasses only heating, frying, baking, roasting, popping, shaving of ice, blending, steaming or boiling of hot dogs, or assembly of non-prepackaged food, dispensing and portioning of non-potentially hazardous food, or dispensing and portioning for immediate service to a customer of food that has been temperature controlled until immediately prior to portioning or dispensing, holding, portioning, and dispensing of any foods that are prepared for satellite food service by the on-site permanent food facility or prepackaged by another approved source, slicing and chopping of non-PHF food or produce that has been previously washed at an approved commissary, cooking and seasoning of food to order, preparing beverages that are for immediate service and don't contain frozen milk product. Hot and cold holding of food that has been prepared at an approved permitted food facility. Reheating that has been previously prepared at an approved permitted food facility and held at required temperatures. Limited food preparation does not include slicing and chopping of potentially hazardous food other than produce unless it is on a heated cooking surface, thawing food, cooling cooked potentially hazardous food, grinding raw ingredients or potentially hazardous food, washing food, cooking potentially hazardous food for later use, handling, manufacturing, freezing, processing, or packaging milk products, or products resembling milk products under Division 15 of the Food and Agricultural Code. A CMFO cannot prepare the following food items: raw meat, raw poultry, or raw fish, unless the CMFO meets warewashing and hand washing requirements. A CMFO cannot prepare also or smoke or cure food as a method of preservation, cure or pickle food, use food additives as a method of food preservation, conduct reduced oxygen packaging food, produce, serve, or sell raw milk or raw milk products, or serve or sell raw oysters. In this section, we'll be discussing the structural requirements for a compact mobile food operation. A CMFO will be required to have identification on the consumer side of the CMFO, and that will include the business name, the owner name, city, state, and zip code. All equipment must be certified for sanitation, integrated into the CMFO, and must be smooth and easily cleanable. The CMFO must have mechanical refrigeration if you are handling potentially hazardous food. You cannot use ice to keep your potentially hazardous foods cold. You will also be required to have a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher on hand. You will also be required to have a hand wash sink built into the cart with pressurized water. You will not be required to have warm water if you are not handling any raw meat, raw poultry, or raw fish. A 3-compartment sink will be needed if handling raw meat, poultry, or fish. And you can have an approved auxiliary sink, which can be separate from your CMFO. If you're not handling raw meats, a 3-compartment sink is not needed if you have spare utensils, or if your utensils are washed, rinsed, and sanitized and air dried each day at an approved commissary. Always remember too that your wastewater tank must be 50% greater in volume than your potable water tank. Your auxiliary sink must have pressurized water, have potable water, be mobile, and be permitted by our department, Environmental Health Services. Here is a chart that determines whether or not what is required based on your scope of operation. Operational requirements. In order to operate a CMFO, you will need to ensure these requirements are put in place or obtained prior to operation. You will need to find an approved commissary. You cannot prepare or store food from an approved home or location. You will need a valid food handler card. Any potentially hazardous foods prepared or served from the unit must be discarded at the end of the day. You will need to provide restroom facilities within 200 feet, but you may be exempt from this requirement distance if you have multiple employees. Commissary and storage. As stated before, a CMFO will be required to have a commissary. A commissary is a permitted food facility where food is prepared or prepackaged for sale. Food containers or supplies are stored. Utensils are cleaned and sanitized. Liquid waste and garbage is disposed. Potable water is obtained. And you must obtain a commissary agreement. CMFO storage. You may allow for a private home to store a CMFO when not in use, but this requires site evaluation and approval from environmental health services. The criteria for evaluation is the following. You must have overhead protection. The area must be restricted and prevent unapproved access to the CMFO. It provides an area that prevents vermin harborage or infestation. Hard service is provided and must be available to CMFO operator at all times. Here's a chart that is an overview of structural operational requirements for a CMFO. So CMFOs in conjunction with micro enterprise home kitchen operations and cottage food operations. So micro enterprise home kitchen operations, otherwise known as MACO, is another food facility type of permit that can operate in conjunction with a CMFO. A MACO can act as a commissary for your CMFO. This type of facility requires a health permit with our office, and more information can be found on our website regarding this type of facility. A MACO, in the shortest definition, is a home-based restaurant where delivery and on-site consumption occurs. In order to operate this type of facility in this county, you also need to fill out a rental notification from the landlord if you are renting your home to ensure they approve of your intention to operate a business from your home. And you will need to obtain a local business license and all local permits as well. Please note that this type of permit has limitations in gross sale earnings and also requires annual inspections. Please note that up to 2 CMFOs are allowed to be stored in a MACO, but must be approved by this department. Cottage food operations, also known as CFOs, are also another type of permit that can operate in conjunction with a CMFO. The same rules apply as a micro-enterprise home kitchen operation, where you must obtain a health permit and all other local permits, as well as not exceed a cap on gross annual sales. The difference between this and MACO is that cottage food can only sell directly and indirectly to customers, but the products sold from a CFO can only be non-potentially hazardous or non-perishable. Please note that there are 2 types of cottage food permits, but in order to operate a CMFO with your cottage food permit, you must obtain a CFO Class B permit. A site evaluation will always be required prior to operation, so please be aware of that as well. Supporting vending sites for CMFOs. In the future, CMFO vendors could further be supported to sell food legally if provided with venues like community centers, parks, or churches. In these areas, they could be provided access to things like regular spaces for selling food, designated garbage receptacles, sinks, and restrooms. And that's contingent based on the support on the local community wanting to provide these things and seeing that this brings a positive impact to their community. Some examples for venues could be the San Mateo County Event Center, public parks providing restrooms and 3-compartment sinks to their CMFO vendors, and such. So before you begin your quest to obtaining a CMFO permit, make sure you consider all other local agencies as they may have certain requirements. If you have a home-based business already, check with your local zoning department to make sure you're capable of operating a CMFO or additional business within your home. Also check with code enforcement to make sure the location you want to sell at is okay as well. We may approve the structure and certain aspects of your CMFO, but there are other facets that you will need to consider as well that may not fall under our jurisdiction. Just remember, there could always be other things that may set you back from achieving your goal. So first things first, in order to get permitted, contact us before operating and purchasing any equipment. Either you can purchase a pre-approved environmental health CMFO, or you can purchase a plan review for your first CMFO, which will cost $841. Once permitted, an annual fee ranging from $335 to $892 will be applied annually. Also check with your local city for additional requirements. And remember, if the CMFO permit doesn't seem to suit your needs, there are other types of food facility permits, which include the mobile food facility permit, temporary food facilities, host catering permits, a CFO cottage food operation, a regular food facility permit, such as a restaurant or bakery permit. And always remember, permit fees apply for each individual type of permit. And lastly, you will also need to obtain a business license from each city you operate in. Cities always have their own requirements or restrictions, so always check in with them. Remember that you will always need to obtain an environmental health permit when you sell food. If you fail to obtain an environmental health permit, that could result in food and equipment being confiscated or impounded, penalty fees, and prosecution. Businesses allowing unpermitted vending to take place on their property will also be subject to penalty fees and prosecution. For further information, you can contact San Mateo County Environmental Health Services. And listed below is the health permit process workflow. Any questions?
Oh.
Edit?
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully in a few seconds, it should tell me that the recording's available.
Oh, hold on. I have to leave or I have to.
Stop recording.
Stop
There,
recording.
there's.
And then it